The sea level is rising and is caused by climate change. Climate change is heating up the Earth faster than you may think, melting the polar ice caps from thermal expansion of the ocean. Added together, Antarctica and Greenland loses 431 billion metric tons per year. That's the equivalent to 171 million Olympic swimming pools. The global temperatures continue to rise because of humans' release of greenhouse gases by burning fossil fuels and coal for energy. Greenhouse gases, like CO2 and methane, are like sponges for the sun's heat. 90% of scientists say that climate change is caused by humans. One of the effects from climate change is sea level rise, and it's affecting the Outer Banks. Scientists have been calculating the sea level since 1807, and it has been rising ever since. But, in this century, the melting ice and thermal expansion of the oceans have skyrocketed because of climate change, raising the global temperatures 0.8 degrees Celsius or 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which may not seem like a lot, but just that amount can cause catastrophic consequences to the whole world. More than 60,000 people live on the Outer Banks, and most of them live 2 to 3 feet above sea level, including my own home. Hi, I'm Miles Caston. I'm a senior at First Flight High School, and I'm here to find out why my home is sinking. I've always wondered why climate change is an issue, but after doing research on climate change, I've realized that it's a real issue, because it will hurt the people that mean the most to me. The Outer Banks is a small community, and I fear for my community, because we are quite literally sinking. I've asked local scientist Dr. Reed Corbett from CSI, or the Coastal Studies Institute, on this issue, and I wanted to hear his thoughts.
So first let's define rising sea level. And so when we're talking about rising sea level and sea level rise, we're talking about sort of the global change and what sea level is doing over long periods of time, right? Because sea level changes daily just because of tides, right? But if we're thinking sort of longer term rising seas and what everybody's always talking about with rising sea level, that's on a much larger scale over longer periods of time. So the change of rising sea level on a global scale is driven by several different mechanisms. One is, for instance, the temperature of the ocean. So as the temperature of the ocean increases, as it becomes warmer, the ocean expands, and so sea level rises. As there's less ice being stored in glaciers because it's melting, moves into the oceans rise. And so in that respect, yes, I mean, increasing global temperatures leads to a warmer ocean, which leads to melting glaciers, which leads to rising sea level. And so in that respect, our influence on global temperatures is certainly changing sea levels. It's making sea level rise faster than it otherwise would.
On the Outer Banks, us inhabitants are surrounded by water, so rising sea level poses a threat, right? Well, at the rate it is rising, Dr. Corbett told me some interesting news.
We think about annually, it's rising in this part of North Carolina. We have about a 4.5 millimeter per year rise in sea level. So that's about the thickness of a nickel per year. And so when you think of it like that, it seems really small, right? But it isn't. I mean, the fact is that is additive. Every year it's rising by that much. And if we look at what it was 100 years ago, the rate of rise was closer to 2.5 to 3 millimeters a year. And so we've seen this increase in the rate, which again, it sort of amplifies through time.
In the next 100 years, the Outer Banks will be inconceivable to what it is now. How many feet? The North Atlantic Atmospheric Association, or NOAA, states that the sea level will rise 6.6 feet in the next 100 years. The height of the ocean is scary, but it doesn't hold a candle to what the hurricanes do to the Outer Banks at sea level's predicted height now. This is footage of Irene in 2011, which devastated the Outer Banks, costing $15.8 billion to repair the Outer Banks. Imagine the damage the sea level was raised a foot more. Water is like a battering ram. If you add more to this battering ram, your house could be destroyed in a matter of minutes. The future right now does not look great, although there is somewhat of a solution: beach nourishment. Thank you, Parker. Beach nourishment is when you take sand from the bottom of the ocean and place it up near the sandbanks. So then you have a wider beach. Although when there's storm surges and waves crashing up on shore, it destroys that beach, therefore making it a temporary solution. Although there's been some environmental concerns. I asked Dr. Corbett, is beach nourishment really that bad?
I mean, there certainly there have been studies that have shown that when you don't add good quality sand, and I'll define that in just a second, when you don't add good quality sand, that you can impact the ecology of your beach, right? Because, I mean, yeah, the beach just looks like sand, but there are all sorts of critters that live in that sand, right? Particularly in the swash zone. And there's birds and things that are dependent on those in fauna, right? The critters that live in the sand. There's turtles and birds that nest on the beaches, and if you change the type of sand on that beach, you totally change the ecology. Yeah. And so what is critical when doing a nourishment is that you add sand to that beach that, as close as possible, matches the sand that was already on the beach. And there are policies in place that make you take samples prior to the nourishment, to evaluate grain size, to evaluate the amount of shell material, the heavy minerals, and so what causes sort of the black coloration on our beaches. Yeah. You have to evaluate those across the area that you're actually going to do the nourishment, and then you have to find a resource that you're taking from that matches it within plus or minus 10%. And so those sort of policies are in place to try and match the sand that you are applying. And if you get a good match, yes, you will have a very short-term influence, but at least, you know, we did a study around the S-curves, around Rodanthe, that demonstrated that the in-fauna came back within about 4 to 6 months. That you couldn't see a difference between the sort of the pre-nourished versus the post-nourished after about 6 months. Now, you could ask the question, what if you start nourishing every year or every 2 years? At that point, you will likely impact the beach. But if the beach is allowed to recover, given time to recover, because we live in such a dynamic area, it is likely to recover, given an amount of time.
Beach nourishment seems like a very good option, although it's expensive, costing Nag's Head $36 million this past year. Here's a photo of beach nourishment after. The summer's beach nourishment was a success, but it was finished before hurricane season. So much effort for just 1 year's worth of hurricanes and storms. If we don't continue beach nourishment, these storms will likely destroy many of the beach houses you stay in during the summer. So I'm here at my house and I'm going to find out how much sea level has actually risen. So I made a little yardstick. Not even a yardstick, but it's fine. So right now we're about 2 feet and a quarter. That's a lot for here on the Sound. So just thinking about how high sea level can rise, let's look at 3/4 of a foot right there. Then right there, which is 2 3/4. Then right there, 2 3/4. In 50 years, I might not have a bulkhead, and that's scary. There's only one way to fix this: stop releasing CO2 emissions from coal and fossil fuels, and switch to renewable energy before it's too late. There's many sources of renewable energy, like nuclear, wind, solar, and wave. On my visit to CSI, I found out that there's been work on current energy by harnessing the power of the Gulf Stream.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Coastal Studies Institute is very involved in renewable ocean energy. We have a whole program that's state funded that is looking at mechanisms for renewable ocean energy. When that program first started, they were primarily interested in wave energy. Yeah. Right? So actually taking energy from the waves and converting that into energy that we can actually use. And so that's in partnership with Jeanette's Pier, where we have a whole facility out there, allows us to hook up instruments to measure waves, measure currents. In the last several years, there's been that particular program has shifted more towards the Gulf Stream as an energy. And so you can think of, you see all these fields of wind turbines in certain places in North Carolina and beyond. Think about using the same sort of way of capturing energy using turbines, but from currents. Right? The Gulf Stream is a major current, so if you have a turbine in the water and that current's passing by, you can generate energy that way.
This is very exciting, because there would be a new power source that will provide humanity with clean, unlimited energy right off the Outer Banks. In conclusion, humans are the cause of climate change, melting glaciers, sea level rise. But it doesn't mean we have to despair. Everyone can help our beaches stay where they are. Reducing our carbon emissions is the best thing you can do to help fight climate change. Like turning off the lights when you leave the house, not letting your car run in traffic, ride your bike, eat foods that aren't mass-produced. You can be the defining factor whether we have beaches or not. For the next week, I want all of you, and I'm going to challenge you to reduce your carbon emissions daily by not keeping your appliances on when you leave the house, riding your bike more, driving less, eating foods that aren't mass-produced, as I've said, because that's the only way we can make definite change. Also, don't ever take the beaches for granted, because the next 100 years, we might not have a beach. Thank you for watching. This video was not made for comedic purposes whatsoever. YouTube was made very heavily in the making of this video. Also, National Geographic, please don't copyright me. We hope that you enjoyed it. Also, donate to the Climate Association of 88888888888888. I don't know why we're saying 8888888888.com. Also, this pays for Miles' tuition, so please donate. Please, I need it. Just, please donate. Also, Miss Will, Miles really needs a good grade, so please, give him an A. Yes, please. This message was not made for comedic purposes whatsoever. It is all true. Thank you, and good day.